Hi, everybody. This is Saad for the Sad Truth. In one of my recent lectures, I discussed order effects in impression formation. So imagine if I told you that I'm going to describe to you a prospective employee that you might hire, or somebody that you might work with in a group project, or somebody with whom you might go out on a prospective date. And the way that I'm going to describe the person in question is by offering you some adjectives that describe the person in question. So, for example, if we take six adjectives, uh, three of which are positive, three of which are negative. So, call the adjectives uh, P1, P2, P3 if they're positive, and N1, N2, and N3 if they're negative. And so now there is a multitude of ways that I can provide you this information. And so I could, for example, give you P1, P2, P3, then N1, N2, N3, and then ask you on a scale of 1 to 10 to rate, how likely you are to hire this person, or to work with this person, or to date this person. Or I could give them to you in another sequence, N1, N2, N3, P1, P2, P3. Or I could alternate P1, N1, P2, N2, P3, N3. Now, from a strict classical economic perspective, the final score that you would give the person would be the same, irrespective of the order in which you presented the information. But we know from various areas in psychology, one of which is work that was originally developed by a psychologist by the name of Norman Anderson at the University of California, San Diego, where he showed that, of course, order affects matter when we're forming impressions. And so, in this sense, it is a violation of what economists think that we should do, which is to be impervious to the order in which information is presented. And now, of course, as it turns out, there are at least two uh, pervasive effects that happen when we're investigating order effects. One is what's called the primacy effect. That's when earlier information is weighed more heavily in forming the final judgment or impression of a particular object. Recency effect would be when the later information weighs more heavily. Uh, and this type of order effects manifests itself in all sorts of areas. So, for example, if I'm doing comparative advertising, if I am Toyota and I'm comparing myself to Mazda, well, should I first do Toyota, then Mazda, or should I do Mazda, then Toyota? So that would be an example of order effects in comparative advertising. Or if you have what's called one-sided versus two-sided advertising. One-sided advertising is where I typically talk about only my positive qualities. This is why you should buy our product, and I list you a bunch of good attributes of my product. Two-sided advertising is where you're trying to typically cue trustworthiness. This is where you actually give not only positive qualities of your product or positive attributes, you also describe negative ones. We may not score number one, but we try very hard to please you, right? So you appear more trustworthy if you give both positive and negative points of your product. And in this case, should you first give the positive ones and then the negative ones, or vice versa? Should you intersperse them? And so again, there's all sorts of contexts where order effects matter. Perhaps in a later Sad Truth clip, I might discuss some research that I have done with one of my former doctoral committee members. His name is Doug Stamen, where we looked at a particular manifestation of order effects. The works were never published. I'm still hopeful that at some point we'll publish them. But in any case, so I wanted to at least discuss with you today how we can study order effects and how these can prove to be a departure from classical axioms of rational choice. Hope you're having a good week. I'll talk to you soon. Ciao.